Hey, I'm Dan, and this is Dan's Planes. Hello, folks. It is February 24th, 2025. So, you may or may not know that I'm not a cold weather flyer. I've moved down south to get away from cold weather. I don't fly unless it's at least 65 degrees. So, in February, we usually down here in Georgia may have 1 to 4 days where it'll get over 65 and the wind isn't terrible. So usually there's some flying time, but otherwise it's part of the maintenance and building season. So that's what I've been doing. I wanted to give an update on the Top Flite P-51 Big Beautiful Doll. I had taken it to the Dino Di Giorgio event last October, I think it is. And that was a remaiden by a friend of mine who is known as the guy to go to maiden airplanes. PJ, and I'm sorry, I forget his last name. Just always call him PJ. And he went ahead and remaidened it after my wing fix, if you've seen videos on that previously, and flew like a champ, so that was great. Previously, Mark Murdoch from the Pecan Patch had to fix my muffler. The muffler is a JTech wraparound, which JTech is no longer in business, which is a real bummer. So you can't get these mufflers anymore. After the flight, my muffler was loose, and I had a immediate air leak in one of my gear. So I was at the point of flying different airplanes and helping my friends with their airplanes, and basically I didn't want to tear into repairing this at the Di Giorgio event. So I just wrote down the items on my Top Flight P-51 checklist of stuff I needed to do, and then waited until the season to get after it. So I've now gotten after it. So I just wanted to tell you what I've done and a couple ways I've gone about things. My channel, if you noticed, is intended to be what the average Joe goes through to fly RC. So I'm not someone who gets brand new planes and is out doing reviews on them or doing maidens on them. A lot of times I'm buying planes that are 5 to 10 years old, and they're usually built, so I usually have to go through them, make sure that they're okay, that things are done that I want done, like using thread lock, for example. It's amazing how much people don't use thread lock on parts. In my opinion, they should. So I just want to go through maintenance then of this P-51. All right, so regarding the muffler that was loose, excuse me, I went in and took it off because I talked with Mark Murdoch. Because JTech is no longer around, I don't know who else to go to make a wraparound muffler for my Phoenix Spitfire giant scale that I've got up in my bonus room, because I don't want that muffler jutting out of my canopy. So Mark Murdoch agreed that he would make one for me, so I needed to send him the one that I have here so that he's able to copy it and reproduce it. So my muffler is currently off with him. An overall change I had to make on this was moving from my Spektrum IX12 over to my Radiomaster TX16S. I've made the transition, so some giant scale planes that I bought with my trailer, including this P-51, were all on a Spektrum IX20 the seller had. So I bought an IX12 so we could transfer the planes. Well, I've successfully trashed the P-47. I've successfully trashed the Focke-Wulf 190. and that leaves, what does that leave? That leaves the top Flite P-51, and what was the other plane? There's a Focke-Wulf, there's a top Flite P-47, P-51, oh, and the Black Horse Zero that met its demise, not by me. So transitioning to giant scale planes, I've been able to foobar pretty much 3 of the 4 planes, and the 4th one here being the P-51, I've definitely done some damage where I've had to break out the new in-box ARF that I had and use those wings. Because I've trashed the other wings and didn't rebuild them properly for the landing gear to sit properly. So someday I may get back into those and tear into those and fix it. But for now, I've just gone in and used the second wing. All right, so I moved the plane to the Radiomaster TX16S, which, you know, I've got a template for giant scale gas planes, but it still took a lot of tweaking. What took the most tweaking was I've got Unilights in my wingtips, which each wingtip has a strobe, and then it has red or green on the tip. So when you set these up and you put them on a channel, like channel 9 is what I've got, you put it on a 3-position switch, like switch SE, you go to the middle switch, and whatever value that is, the controller is going to have a certain pattern of what lights turn on, how long they turn on, if they flash or don't flash, if they strobe, if they don't strobe. So then you have to go through each and every position of sub-trim, which is up to plus 100 to minus 100. So there are 200 positions to go through, which I did, to find out which lights I wanted as my center light, which light patterns. Then you set your endpoints for low and for high on the switch, which gives you another plus 50 and minus 50, so another 100. So I had 300 positions to go through to find out how I wanted my lights, which I didn't get what I wanted. I wanted the switch to be no lights when it was forward. Then I wanted red and green solidly on with white strobe, which I could not get. I could only get red and green on for a period of time with a strobe, and then they'd all turn off for a period of time. Then when it was full forward, I wanted either just constant strobe or white lights on, and possibly red and green on constantly for landing, because I don't care if it's scale. I just want to be able to see my wings when I'm coming in, because part of my issue with landings, if you've noticed, I have a problem with landing warbirds, tail dragging warbirds. I can't get the airplane out far enough because I can't see that far. So I don't take it out as far as a lot of other people do to get lined up and to burn off some speed. So I come in too fast, and I'm just too far over the runway instead of setting it down at the end of the runway. So all that's to say that I had a lot to set up on those dang lights, going through 300 positions, or values, I guess I should say, to find the ones closest to what I wanted. So that was one thing. So then on the Retracts, apparently underneath the wing, one of the lines that goes from the Retract up here to these T-fittings, which then goes up here to plug into the controller, that line had developed a hole in it. It almost looked like from rubbing, so I have to keep an eye on that to see. I don't know how or why that would have happened. It's the first time I've ever seen that. So I had to plumb the line to go through, to fish a new line through. So I put the new line through. After I did that, I checked my air leaks, and number one, my air leak valve, which this seems to happen a lot, even when I use thread locker, my valve was loose and spinning all around. So I was unable to unscrew this. So I don't know if I put thread locker on it. I think I did, but you can't really grab this part here with pliers a whole lot because it's threaded for this nut to be able to go through. So I wasn't able to tighten up the nut from this side. There's then a nut on the back side, but to get to that, I'd have to pull out this plate and pull out the gas tank, and frankly, I just didn't want to do that. So I went ahead and put in some small pieces of wood and did some thin CA and then some thick CA. So now it seems to be solid. So that I took care of. Then I filled it with air and did a leak test, which means I filled it with air. I put the retracts in the down position, and I had a timer for 30 minutes. I looked at my gauge here. The full 105 pounds of pressure would give you 5 bars, about 5¼ bars to maybe 5½ bars with this sticking out. So I would do that for a half an hour, see how much air I lost, do it for another half an hour just to confirm that everything's okay. Then go back and do that with the gear up, because you've got to test both the down and the up lines. So I had a problem when the gear is up. So then the question becomes, how in the world do you find where your air leak is? So I went through and I used the soap and water method and put it on everywhere that there was a connection that I was able to reach. I could not reach, for example, the tail gear. I was not able to go back there and put soap and water on. I wasn't able to get to the connection onto the air canister. I wasn't able to get to some of the T-fittings that are going from the air fill and the pressure gauge. So I did what I could, and I didn't find anything. So that sucked. So then I decided, all right, I need to somehow try to start narrowing this down. So what I did is I used forceps, and I closed off the air lines that were going to the wings. That way, after I filled it with air, testing it both up, testing it both down, again, a half an hour each time, that would tell me if my air fill valve is good, my air pressure valve is good, my canister connection is good, my rear wheels is good, and my controller is good. Thankfully, all of that was good, and I did not lose any air pressure. So it was definitely a leak that was happening within the wings. So then what do you do next? Then I decided to, let's see how to do that. I think what I did was I kept forceps on one of the lines. So either down or up, I still kept it forcepped, so there would not be any leaking from the wing. But the other line, I went ahead and moved the forcep from here by the controller just to after the connection to the wing, left it for 30 minutes. It was okay. Then I moved the forcep down and forceps off these two tubes going to the actual retracts. That way I was testing up through this T-fitting. I also replaced a T-fitting with brass because these plastic ones, I've had problems with those constantly, but it's hard to get these Robart metal ones since the guy taking over Robart hasn't got settled in yet. So I tested that. That was fine. Then I left off forceps on both of them, tested it, and what I found was the down gear position, I was not losing air. Everything was fine through that. So then I went and did the exact same steps through having the gear in the up position and doing the forceps down the up tubing. And what I found was I was okay until the tubing got to the nipple of the retract mechanism, that piston cylinder. I was losing half of my air on the port retract mechanism. So I didn't know, because I was only able to force it up to the nipple. I didn't know if it was the actual nipple connection. So I disconnected the tubing, cut off about the length of what would have been on the nipple, reattached it, retested it, and yes, it's still leaking. So that tells me that it was the retract itself that's leaking. Now, I had talked to Daryl at Sierra Retracts a couple years ago because I was having air leaks with this, and he sent me grease that he uses to pack the retracts when he builds them, and he had me put that in the lines, put in air pressure so it would hopefully push it into the piston, but that unfortunately did not seem to fix the problem. So I talked to him again, and these retracts are probably 7 or 8 years old at least. So I talked to him, and he said, yeah, go ahead and send both of them back in, and he'll take a look at them and probably put new O-rings on them and get them all taken care of. So those are currently out to Sierra. So that's what I went through trying to find the air leaks. Just pneumatics, pain in the arse. So my muffler is out for Mark to make a copy, and my retracts are out to get the air leak fixed. So before I was able to program the lights, I was not getting any lights to turn on, and I traced it and found that my black wire on my light controller had broken off. So I had to take the top off of this, resolder the black wire, put the top back on, and then my lights were good. I also touched up the soldering on the red and white wires because they weren't looking the best. I guess this is happening from vibration, so I'm gonna have to keep an eye on that. What else? I've got a problem with my Radio Master. It's got the ability to add a model match number for each model. That way you know that the transmitter is only going to connect to one receiver. And the model match number for this Mustang is supposed to be 12. Well, in my transmitter it showed 0, but when I put the transmitter on the computer, it showed it was 12. So then when I bound it here, it went back to 0. So now I've got to rebind it again and set the number to 12, because I think it defaults back to 0 every time you bind, so you have to punch in the number. So it's very wonky. Something I don't like about this radio is the model match numbers, because it's not easy to tell when you have an open one, when you don't. So in other words, what the next number is that you should choose. And then it seems to, they seem to not hold. So I don't know, maybe I'm doing something wrong. So I'm going to have to rebind this to channel 12 or model match 12. Okay, so what's left to do with this on my checklist, get back the muffler, put it on, actually run the engine and set the endpoints now that I've moved it to the radio master from my Spektrum. Also get the Retracts back and put all them back together. And going by memory on what's left on the spreadsheet, after this video, I'm going to redo the model match number 12, so that'll be off the list. I think that's everything that I need to do. I am going to convert. I've always been flying gas that's 30-to-1 using redline oil. I'm going to change that to 40-to-1 for all my birds. So there's probably going to be some slight tuning that needs to happen on this. So that's where she is, and then she will be ready for this season. Just waiting to get these things back, which I'm hoping to have back in about 3 weeks, maybe 4 max. So basically in March, mid to end of March. So she should be ready for the season. So that's an update on the P-51. Just a lot of maintenance after a season, and after having not flown it for 2 years, flying it last season, you know, can make some gremlins come out. So that's what's going on. That's how I problem solved it, and that's what I need to do next. So finish that on the P-51, and then there are some items that need attention on the MiG-3. As always, thanks for watching. I hope you like and subscribe, or will consider it. And if you feel you get good information or good entertainment and want to drop me a tip in my Patreon, the link is in the description. If not, no worries. I wish you the very best blue skies and good speed.